Okay, guys, I know it's been a while. I've been trying. I've had so much work. What's funny is I planned on having like a group of a couple people come to the house, and I forgot all about it until about a week ago. And some of it is like friends from old school, and then some local people that are clients or friends through clients or through my group. So what I'm doing today is I've been working in the garden trying to get, hold on, I'm trying to find the mint. And if you look, what I've been trying to do is, if you look inside the garden here, that's all mint. So what I did today is, normally, like if I do groups, one thing that everybody knows me for are some of the main things that I use when I do clearings. Instead of sage, I use mint. Mint is something that actually brings money, prosperity, health, and many other benefits within your life. Sage can remove good and bad energy. So normally what I do, if I ever do like say almost like a festival, the things I bring normally, I only normally bring two things, right? And that is Palo Santo and mint. And those are like my two prime things that I use on a regular basis. I use Nag Champa a lot too, to be honest. And frankincense. I actually have frankincense incense running right now with Nag Champa. But the thing is, about this time of the year is a good time to be able to actually do a mint, like a prosperity ritual, because we're moving out of the summer season into the fall season, right? So as we are doing this, you need to start looking at it with prosperity moving into the season. Okay, so as I'm going to be talking about some things on this Saturn day, Saturn's Day, that's what it really stands for, is Saturn, the planet Saturn. And so I'm going to be actually harvesting some mint while I talk. I did open up a little bit. I've noticed some things when we was at the beach about like myself, that you don't even recognize some things about yourself until after. Oh, so this is the mint that I just harvested. And I'm gonna bundle all this up while I'm talking, and then you dry it out and it turns into like little sage bundles like this. So I harvest a few times a year during the grow season, and then if I do clearings for people, a lot of times I'll use the mint out of my garden, and then I know the energy has been held because it's in my property per se. So my main thing is, what I'm going to be talking about is the fear paradigm. And the thing is, okay, so as we live in this fear paradigm, they know if they promote the fear to a specific state, our homeostasis, to where we're like not a creative part, the creative part of us will not be able to mature and become what we need to be. And what's funny is, I have studied, shit guys, I used to read like 10 and 12 books at a time. And I mean, I used to be like one of probably the biggest buyers of books through the thrift store, through the thrift books. And I bet you I've gotten like 20 free books from buying so many books and reading so many. But what's funny is, now I've studied so much for so long, it seems like what's going on is I'm like, everything seems like it's all regurgitated. I don't know if anybody else is getting to that point of studying, but I am. And I noticed that probably about a year ago, and I've stopped reading most literature. I did start reading the Book of Mormon within the last year, because that is a book that I've been wanting to read, just to look into and find principles within it to see if it can actually go along with like Sumerian text, the Gnostic text, and all the other literature that I've read through and studied. So what's funny, I've noticed within myself, after you like start this spiritual journey, and this is the point of the day, as we start this spiritual journey, it's actually what we're doing. We are actually assuming. So when I first started this journey, I thought that everyone did not know, or I had to find a specific amount of people to be able to like associate with. But what I was doing was ostracizing myself. And so come to find out, as the years gone by, I've studied and studied and studied. But what's funny is you're still, or I was still, so this is me 15 years later, finally breaking out of this fear paradigm that was still within the spiritual regime, as you would call it. It's almost like a regime cult, because a lot of the people that are in this spiritual field are all bought and paid for, and they're all fucking bullshit. So we're over here assuming, oh, here's my first bundle. So we're assuming these gurus that are on here are here to help us, but really they're probably all, because what I'm seeing is like they are genetically, they were already placed here. Okay, so I'll take you back to about probably 7 or 8 years ago, and I saw when I was astral traveling, what happened was, ooh, law. So what happened was, I was seeing like these reptilians and all these species that were about 12 feet, maybe even taller. They were some ugly ass fuckers, and they had these long fingernails and long. I found a picture. If you Google troll and scroll down, you'll see like this huge green, like dark green character, blackish green, and he looks like this with long nails and long fingers, and he just like abnormal. That's what I saw, and that was the closest thing that can represent what I saw. So what I did see was this genre of theosophy that was created by Aleister Crowley, which is a part of the Frankists that I'm talking about. The Frankists are the people that rules our world, that claims they're Jew and they're not. They claim that they're Christian and they're not. What they are they theosophists. They worship black magic, and they do blood worship, and they kill things to get their gain. And one other thing I would like to make a point at. So when I see things, normally I will call them out, and then next thing you know, like some of the locals, I was seeing things that were like in the same genre as the Frankists, because they're not Luciferian. At least like if a Luciferian would put out the shit, he would consider himself Luciferian. You get what I mean? But they're like, well, I'm pagan, but I don't know if I'm pagan. I'm Christian, I don't know if I'm Christian. Well, I'm this, I don't know if I'm that. That's got a Frankist. They know what they are. And the thing is, if they are promoting this new world agenda to dominate us and dominate the world around us, I am against you. And I am fighting against you, and I cannot support it. And I can't support being part of you. I can't be supportive of it. I can be supportive of Luciferians. I can be supportive of Christians, even though they're wanting the Frankists to have this communist rule through Jerusalem with a one world Messiah to rule the world, which is nothing more than like a communist state. But the thing is these people are still like blackballed in a way. So they don't understand the full picture of what the religious ideology that they assume to be true is, because they haven't taken the time to look at it for themselves. And with that said, if I'm over here being part of, or so if you are sitting around, and if you have friends that all of a sudden start putting out this ideology, and you're like myself that's over here, that's holding a space for others, doing for others, helping others. And if you're seeing these things that's going down, right, and if you're not standing up for it, you're a fucking coward. That's what I call it. And when I see things, I was like, oh, maybe I'm just like over analyzing it. I'm not. It's a gut feeling. You have to go with your gut feeling, baby. And sometimes it's hard to do it. So what was funny was, okay, so for the longest time, only a handful of people that I knew within like the rural North Carolina actually has studied and knows as much as I do. So then what are you placed in? What was I placed in? I was placed yet in another fear paradigm. And so that's what came to me when I was at the beach. I was like, holy shit. So this whole time, I've been over here actually like in a fear paradigm, assuming that I'm sovereign, but I was afraid because not many people understand what I know, if that makes sense. And finally it come to me that, you know, it doesn't matter if the people know what I'm saying or understand everything I'm saying. The point is when people are over here putting out certain symbology and not understanding it, it's different than people that I know that has studied and knows the symbology and knows the meaning behind it. It's muy difícil to decipher, if that makes sense. So, number two, and for me to sit back and say, oh, well, it must be like a misinterpretation, or, okay, well, maybe it was a GIF, or whatever you call them motherfuckers, GIFs. They claim, oh, I got a GIF off Esty, 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 is that what it's called? I'm like, you didn't buy that damn thing off Esty. You crazy as hell. You crazy as hell. You and your like hidden Luciferian symbols and shit. You crazy. But I know you ain't Luciferian. So what the fuck are you doing Luciferian symbols and all this other shit? It's because if you're not part of the Luciferian cult, you're part of the Frankist cult. And the thing is but what's funny, okay, a lot of people are putting out the symbology like they're part of it, and they don't understand how deep the rabbit hole is. And unless you are like filthy rich, like Donald Trump and them crazy fuckers up at the top that was bought and sold probably before they ever got here. To be honest, I think most of them, like Donald Trump, Joe Biden, I believe all of them have already sold their soul before they ever arrived. They sold their soul last life, and they're almost like stuck here like a loop. And they have to continue forward, being forced to do specific agendas for Moloch. And what most people don't understand is Moloch is the god of United States. And Moloch is really the god of the world, to be honest, because Moloch is like the old term of, I guess you would call like Lucifer, or I don't know if Moloch is actually Satan, to be honest, but I know Moloch. So like I've mentioned before about how when Moses came off the hill after 40 days and 40 nights, when he came down, it was stated in the text, most people that are English would never know the text because they don't look at the text correctly. And with that said, when he came off, the kids were terrified of him. Why? Because his skin turned like leather, like a cow, and then he started growing horns like a bull. The only thing that I know of that is growing horns with leather is a fucking cow. Well, Moloch is representation of a cow. Well, modern day, I have a little hesitation about this part, right? Because in modern day, they claim Moloch is an owl. It's that thing in that place in California, something gardens. I'm not quite sure. I have to like figure out the name. I'm not good with celebrities. I'm not good with all that stuff. So it's that place where they do the burnings and stuff like that, and then all the congressmen show up like once a year and do these weird rituals. That is the owl of Moloch. And I'm not quite sure how Moloch changed from a bull cow to an owl over the years, but it happened, right? So in a lot of different cities today, you will see the owl, and that represents the god Moloch, in which the god Moloch is the Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth is the demiurge of the Gnostic text and the Sumerian text, which that would have been, I think it was Enlil or Enki. One of them was like the terrorizer. One flooded the world, one killed everybody off, and then his brother tried to save us. And so you have the good and you have the bad. And what's funny is within like Buddhism. So within Buddhism, there's always the yin and the yang. And so you always have to have the good with the bad. Now, what I have mentioned before, years ago, what if Lucifer is Jesus? Because he's Zeus, Jesus. So I've almost come to the conclusion that if the older like Vedic texts and stuff like that, what they do is they always put the yin and the yang, and then the Buddhism does the yin and the yang. So what if Zeus, Jesus, is actually the Lucifer, but they're showing you the good and the bad within him, if you get what I mean. So, with that said, how do we know? We don't really know. To be honest, Lucifer was never stated in old text. He is a new thought form created by men, and that's where the only thing of like that sort would be Satan, which is like a demon, daimon, and daimon means nothing more than like the spirit world. So there's a lot of misinterpretations between what Lucifer can be, what Satan can be, and what demons can be. Now, what changes my perspective is I have dealt with a few demons, not personally, but literally in my homes and stuff. So I know that demons do exist. So that's where I look at it a little differently than most people, because, right, so when people are over here claiming, okay, well, if demon is a new term of something, how do you know it exists? Well, in old text, possibly not. But the thing is if we have like the darkness within ourselves for so long, right? And then what we've done is we have now created these daimons, Daemon, I believe is how it's spelled off the top of my head. It's called, that's what demon actually is in old literature. So as we look into things, we have mistranslated words, but by natural law, that's where it comes into being where we're at today. Because whether they've mistranslated it or not, they still tell us part of the story, and part of the story is still true, if that makes sense. So there is these daimons, but they are more of like a demon, if you get what I mean. So it's a little different than how literature would want to be. But, getting back to what I was originally wanting to talk about, the fear within this spiritual paradigm that we're at. So, as we're moving into this spiritual paradigm, and we're trying to do our best, what we're doing is actually, we assume, oh, well, I've studied, so you're actually, what I have done, and what I see, like the whole generation of people that's doing what I've done, we have ostracized ourselves. So all we have done is really ostracize ourselves, making ourselves assume that we need to look at like a specific group to like help us, when actually these groups could have been part of that Aleister Crowley. When I was telling you that I saw those things that came out of the ground, I have a feeling that they were already part of, because when I saw that, what happened is they were they called these things into being. And what happened is, after they called them into being, they ended up within like churches. And then they showed me like villages, and all these separate villages, and then these beings, or whatever in the hell they were, ended up being the ministers. So they were implanted into each church within the villages, and then promoting that agenda. And that was the theosophists of today included with, because it was the churches of Christianity. So what's funny is, so these top people, so the people of like these big churches are actually, I'm not sure what they are, to be honest, because how I feel is this, is when they came into being and these things jumped into the church, I don't know if the ministers were maybe soulless at that point, and then these beings jumped into them and used them as like a soul source. Or maybe what happened was they weren't soulless, but these things like interjected themselves into the church family, and then the minister at that time becomes super greedy or something like that happened, and then it gave the right for this entity that I saw that came out of the ground through the theosophists to come in to interject and then place themselves within the church cycle. With that said, after these ministers have sold themselves off and done this, they are now in the karmic cycle of this Moloch god, if that makes sense. So this Moloch god has now been interjected from this era. And because if everything was created by Caesar, it was all manipulated through time, and then everything has been rewritten. So a lot of times what we assume we know is just ignorance. And people today, we claim we're the smartest like generation in the world, and most people are like the dumbest motherfuckers. It's just weird how we assume we're so smart. Before long, people won't even know how to drive their car. I swear to God, people won't even be able to drive the car because they're going to be so fucking stupid. They're going to have their car drive them. I swear that's where we're headed. And now back to where I was getting to. So what I saw in myself was this fear that I assumed existed created this field for people to be able to almost like not manipulate or use, but it was almost like they had the ability to understand that I was in that cycle, if you get what I mean. So these people that understood what was going on, they saw that and they used it to their advantage. And after I've done enough, and it's not that I've done enough studying, what happened was I see these things, and then when you see so many things, no such thing as coincidence. So guys, if you see something, if you hear something, if you see a cloud that looks like something spiritual, there is no such thing as coincidence. If you see a butterfly land and you think of something, a lot of times, like if your family has passed and you want to associate a butterfly and or a dragonfly or something like that with that species, you get what I mean? Your family will be able to actually communicate, because animals communicate telepathically, so it's different than how we would speak, right? So as the spirit world, they can be able to communicate to the butterfly and maybe manipulate it or force it over to where you see it. And when you see it, guess what? That's your family actually relaying to you through this species of butterfly and or dragonfly. And so as I get into it, we have now placed ourselves in certain cycles of the spiritual world, assuming that these people are here for our benefit. Let me make sure my phone's charging. Otherwise, she's going to die, probably. She was about to die earlier. Hold on, let me put her to charge. Okay, should be charging now. So, what happens is, what I assume is this, is they understand how this works. So they have already, it's almost like they've placed certain people within the region. And I told you before, I swear I think that they see us from the world, like up in the sky high. They up there, I swear. And when you're looking for these groups, guess what? They're going to place a certain souled fucker to be there and make you assume something. And I'm not saying that it's not for our growth, because the thing is everything is for our spiritual growth within this world cycle that we live. Yeah, another one. So with that said, as we grow as spiritual beings, we all have to understand that yes, things are placed in our way. Things are here. But I do think, with that said, that some things have been manipulated, and then it's causing things to be here that should have never been here, if that makes sense. So some of these things that are here today are not worldly. They have never been worldly, and these theosophists understood certain blood rituals to manifest them to come within a portal to come here, like the lion's portal. And that's what I'm trying to say. So when we're over here manifesting through this lion's portal, or all these other portals that they talk about during the year, I've seen what comes through the portals. And I have seen like some nasty ass shit come through. And that's what has me looking at these portal dates differently, because they created these like things to come through a portal and then be placed within cycles to be able to manipulate the world at which we live today. So what am I saying? So today, the big churches, Joel Osteen, I would say he is straight up reptilian. All the people of the church family that has like huge followings, that makes tons of money, they are all, I'm all but positive they are part of this reptilian species, and they know what's going on. They understand it. They understand it completely. And they're using this thing for a specific reason. Another thing I brought up to my partner a little while ago was this. So, the Mormon man, Joseph Smith. Okay, he was so enlightened, guys, right? He was enlightened. So, what's funny about this story is this. And I haven't read the whole book. I started reading it, and then I was like, oh, this just sounds like straight up batshit crazy, because people just like want to believe. What I'm not saying that he was. What I'm saying is possibly part of it could be true, and I'm actually seeing that. So he did have connection with something, but that something was a lower energy, because he was still living within like the blood paradigm. So he was able to communicate with things that weren't here for humanity's best. Now, what I would like to bring up is this. After he was shot and killed by the Masons, because after he got like big and moved to the city, the Masons went and slaughtered him for something. And what's funny is this. So they slaughtered him, but then all of his, like, the head people of his church become the new prophets. The people of his church were not enlightened. They were nothing more than followers. So if you assume that the prophet of Joseph Smith of that day then took his lineage of the spiritual being of what he knew to his followers, I don't believe it. I don't. And the thing, I even mentioned this to my little Mormon girls that was coming here. I had to blow them off after a little while because they started like driving me crazy. But I did bring this to their attention. I said, my question is to you. If Joseph Smith was so enlightened, why is he not trying to teach classes for people to be able to communicate the way that I communicate? Doesn't that make sense? Because you know what I'm doing? I'm trying to teach classes and teach people to communicate with spirit through the Akashics, to be able to see, communicate, and then relay the information. So if he was that connected, I got the itches all of a sudden. If he was that motherfucking connected, what makes you think that he was doing it for greed? And I think it was because he was poor, and maybe he did have a connection. I'm not saying he didn't, but the thing is, you have to look back before him. Moses was the Moloch part of the god. And if now he's trying to relay this new Moloch version of the Moloch god, which was the bull with the horns, and now it's the owl of modern day. And what makes you think, what's funny, I brought this up too to my group about 4 or 5 months ago. So in the Mormon church in Washington, D.C., they have the baptismal pool. Oh my God, it is gorgeous, gorgeous. I think, I'm not quite sure. I think there's either 12 or 13 bulls, like Moloch, and then there's one bowl. So it's like they are dipping you in the bowl of Moloch. And I brought that up to the group a while back, and I was like, this church is just drop dead gorgeous in Washington, D.C. I have a friend that is Mormon, and I do see a lot of the Mormon views as beneficial. I think that they do study a lot like I do, but they still are not allowed to like decipher their opinion, if you get what I mean. So
they want them to study, yes, but they still want them to understand that, like, their opinion doesn't count, if that makes sense. So I see that's what drew me to them, because I was like, you know what? So y'all want us to learn about the hidden books of, like, all these hidden books, right? And then I brought this up to their attention as well about these books, and they're like, actually, we've read this book and this book and this book. And I'm like, pretty impressive. So they do read it, but what they always do is they go back to their same beliefs. Now, one other thing I was thinking about earlier, and I'm just gonna be blunt about it. It might stir some feathers, but it is what it is. So, what's funny, when I was doing the Reiki class a while back, they kept, like, wanting me. So I see it like almost like a messiah complex. You always have to give gratitude to specific people after they've been dead. So that means that you're actually, like, creating them to become like a god, deity, and or a goddess or something of that sort. And if these people created the Reiki thing, why are we still sitting here, like, giving homage to them like we would be Yada Baoth or Elohim or Thor, or, you get what I mean, or all them? And I don't see the benefit in it. And before I ever studied Reiki and went through the Reiki training, I actually felt like I did just as much help, if not more help, before I ever even knew about it, to be honest. Because what I do is I go out of body and I see your flaws, and then I find the flaws, I pull them out of your body, and then I try to correct it, or I try to pull it out of your body. And see, now the problem is with Reiki, what you're doing is this. Is you're calling upon the man that created the Reiki, right? So you're asking him to do the job rather than me do the job like I did before. So as soon as you give him the power within yourself, as soon as that happens, what happens is this, is I am over here allowing him, a dead motherfucker, to take my energy and use it, and then use it wisely. How do you know he's using it wisely? Do you know him? Do you know him? I mean, maybe he healed a few people, or did he? I'm just saying. Historical books is all fucked up, honey. And how do we know it's true? We don't. So with that said, a lot of things that we assume to be true is all corrupted. And so my point to the story is this. Before I ever learned Reiki, I was already doing certain things to take, like, illnesses out of people from afar within a meditative state and removing them. And if I could not remove it, I would tell them about it. Come to find out, they were actually fucking entities that they're praying to. And I'm like, okay. So who the fuck are you praying to, boo? I gotta move on. Get on out here now. Last thing I need is a damn entity be praying up in my motherfucking house. Last thing I need. So anyways, and then also they said, there is no bad energy within Reiki. No bad energy within Reiki. But they always, another thing, I was like, so if there's no bad energy within Reiki, but then what they say is this: when you're done, make sure and wash your hands of cold water to get rid of the bad energy. Huh? Okay, so can we repeat that? Can you rewind that? And I brought this up to the person that was teaching me the Reiki. I'm like, okay, so if there's no bad energy within Reiki, then why are you having to wash and like do a cleansing afterwards because of the energy. There's something missing here, honey. And that's when they realized that I was right. Because there are so many things that we don't understand within Reiki and all these genres. And when you're doing Reiki and teaching through Reiki or doing Reiki, if you are taking your energy, this is just me saying it, take it as it will, but if you're over here doing Reiki and you are over here asking whoever that, I don't even remember his name anymore, I'm so past that, but if you're over here losing your energy, giving him your energy and like telling him to work through you to heal them, that is a Messiah complex. So it's no difference than Christian. That is no difference than Jesus, Jesus. It's no different. So the Reiki healers of today, it's the same thing as Jesus. I tell you. And that it's like, I don't know. I don't know where we're at today anymore. And I just keep seeing things in myself that I keep trying to correct. And then I see things that have come up over the years. And then people just continue like living in this weird ass paradigm to where they assume that, look at that big ass thing. That thing's going to burn up this place for sure. She's a monster. Look at that bitch. Which side is it on? Over here. I'm going to use that in the yard. That's going to like burn forever and ever. Amen. So we have to understand when we start to learn like new techniques and new traits, are they over here telling you to like, when you open up, you need to like say thank you. I appreciate them people learning these traits. I'm not saying I don't, but I cannot open up and I'm not going to like give you my energy. That's the same thing as me being a Christian and like giving like blood rituals to Jesus. And Jesus is not going to get my blood. Jesus is not going to get my energy. Jesus is nothing more than a vampire. And we got to look at it like this, okay? Jesus cannot come into your life unless you open the door. If he is the divine energy of the all creator, he would be connected continuously. So he would be continuously intertwining with our being. He's not. He then says, after you open the door, I will come in and me and my Father will take an abode. So what the hell does that mean? That is nothing more than like a poltergeist. Let's just be real. It's nothing more than a poltergeist. So if you have called him into your life, him and his Father has now taken abode inside your body. I did go through a ceremony. Enrique hated it because he still has Jesus on the mirror, and you know how I feel, but it is what it is. And so I was telling him that I did it, and he's like, "Ooh, you did that?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I did. I don't want him to take a boat in my damn body. The last thing I need is another motherfucking thing up in my body. Unless I asked you to come up in my body without even knowing he's already up in my body. I was a kid going to church, done invited his ass in, and his Father came, took a boat in my body. So that means that I was nothing more than I was a poltergeist internally. I don't understand this, man. This world is so damn crazy. It's just some of the stuff that has been mistranslated, and then I just read, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. You gotta be kidding me. I gotta correct that too. I lived in church. Honey, I was there Sunday morning, Sunday evening. I went to every damn Bible study. I went to every church camp. I went to every, like, them big things where they had like thousands of little children going up and saving themselves to Jesus. And shit, I was all about it, honey. I was all about it. Sucked up in all that rat race. Don't kid yourself, I was. My parents had me in every damn thing. Those yearly Bible classes. And to be honest, we had a rocking one when we were a kid. We had some really good, like, it seemed at the time when I was a child that they were fairly intelligent and really taking the time to teach the youngins the traits of what needed to be taught. But what it was, when you have such a huge, or the growing, so like the church that I was at was not too big at the time, and then it was growing out of control, and we had all these kids like everywhere. It was just full of children. And when you have all these kids, you had to have somebody that was there to really like get you involved, especially if they're over here sending you off to camps for a week sometimes weeks during the summer. And then we would go to those, like, I don't even know what the hell they called, those things where I wish I knew the name of them, but I'd say 40,000, 50,000 people up in like Charlotte Coliseum. They was getting it down, honey. And they had so many people not opening the door to Jesus by the time they was gone. And what I can't fathom is the understanding of, are these people still within the same sect? You get what I mean? Are they within the church paradigm, but still within like the satanic ward, but we don't even know? And okay, so the thing is, these people are all in the same. They can still do one, but if the group is so ignorant, they can get by with it, if that makes sense. So these, by natural law, they can afford, they can afford to do it, because what they're doing is that now, after they have sold their rights to their soul, they know that they have to then come back, because the soul contracts, if you sell your soul to him, the contract is this. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. As soon as you sell your soul to Jesus, what's going to happen is, within that soul contract, you will continuously have your mortal body. You will have an eternal mortal body, not an eternal spiritual body. So what does that mean? That means you have now been taken from that to use here, to stay here within this cycle, within this world, to manipulate and use and have the world that they want. And that's where a lot of people don't understand these things. And I'm not saying I'm smarter than anybody, but I see flaws within myself. I will come on here and I'll tell you how I feel. And I have been like run ragged lately. God damn it. And because what's funny is, I had like all these chores that I wanted to do before the end of the summer, and now I'm seeing the summer's done. What's sad is this: my fall like gigs that I'll take care of are starting this next week, and I never even finished my summer chores around my house because I've been so busy doing other things, or having to go places or do things. And I'm a little I'm like I tell you, I told people when I started in spring, I'm like weeks behind, and I told somebody I was about a month behind. I swear, if I'm being real, I'm like, I'm over a month behind right now. The only reason I'm doing this right now, so, oh god damn it.